It's February of 2022, and tensions are high across Europe, as Russia has been building up their forces along Ukraine's borders since April 2021. And whilst some forces were withdrawn in July 2021, a significant rebuild-up of Russian forces begins in October 2021, which then brought the total number of troops by 24th of February 2022 to over 100,000. These Russian forces stretched from the Belarus-Ukrainian border to the Russian border with Ukraine. Throughout this time, Russia had dismissed concerns of their military buildup, and instead insisted that they were only conducting training exercises and had every right to deploy any number of troops they want within their own borders. Soon after, Russia begins making diplomatic demands beginning in December 2021, such as wanting assurances that Ukraine would not join NATO. After more demands, these diplomatic tensions would reach a boiling point as in the morning of the 24th of February 2022, President of Russia, Vladimir Putin, announces a special military operation into Ukraine, with the aim of denazifying Ukraine and protecting the Donetsk People's Republic and Luhansk People's Republic. This is because Russia officially recognized these breakaway states a few days prior. Once Putin ends his announcement, a significant amount of precision-guided missiles are launched into Ukraine in order to disrupt Ukraine's command and control, destroy the Ukrainian Air Force, and damage Ukrainian logistics. What then soon followed was a multi-axis attack from the north, east, and south in order to capture key strategic areas in Ukraine. One of these strategic areas was an airport close to Kyiv called Hostomel Airport. The Hostomel Airport is a key strategic objective because it is located about 10 kilometers or 6.2 miles northwest of Kyiv. Therefore, capturing this airport would give Russian forces an opportunity to create an air bridge and allow for a rapid deployment of further troops near Kyiv, and to also bring any other needed supplies. The Russian Airborne Forces, or otherwise known as the VDV, are given the task of securing this airport and accomplishing this vital mission. At around 8 a.m., the sound of helicopters begins to shake the ground as civilians look in shock to see a helicopter formation of between 20 to 30 Mi-8s carrying possibly hundreds of VDV soldiers to the Hostomel Airport. It's also reported that these soldiers are from the 31st Guards Air Brigade and the 11th Guards Air Brigade, which are elite paratrooper units. While these soldiers are transported, Russian attack helicopters are sent from Belarus and begin striking the airport in order to soften the Ukrainian defenses. This was no easy task, as these attack helicopters were under intense fire from both small arms fire and man-portable air defense systems, which are also known as manpads. Furthermore, because the air assault is happening during daytime, these helicopters are much more vulnerable. However, this is also to the benefit of Russia, as it helps to compensate for their lack of night vision and assists in strengthening coordination. Furthermore, the CIA had warned Ukraine that the Hostomel Airport was a target, but the speed of their air assault still threw the Ukrainians off guard. Nevertheless, a Russian Ka-52 is eventually hit on its third strafing run by a manpad, and the pilots quickly eject. And by this time, the helicopter formation of Mi-8s are close to reaching their landing zones as they begin crossing the Dnieper River, but they too come under fire by manpads and small arms. Due to this intensity of fire, many of the Mi-8s deploy flares as they cross the river to avoid being hit, and then eventually reach Hostomel Airport and drop off VDV forces into the airport. The number of helicopters lost in total is difficult to confirm, but the Ukrainian military alleges it shot down 3 Mi-8s. As Russian forces exit the helicopters and move forward towards the airport, they are met by a small local unit of Ukrainian National Guard. An intense engagement begins between the small unit of National Guard and the much larger Russian VDV units. As each side exchanges fire, it is evident to the National Guard that they are outnumbered and decide to retreat from the airport. Upon retreating, the National Guard unit called in an artillery strike in a last-ditch attempt to disable the runway and prevent a further landing of troops. After the Ukrainians had retreated, open-source intelligence suggests that Russia was still willing to use the runway, and it may have been still usable, as 18 Il-76 cargo planes were inbound to Hostomel Airport. If this was to be the case, then about 2,000 Russian soldiers could have been transported from Russia to Hostomel Airport, which would have strengthened Russia's Kyiv offensive. Unfortunately for Russia, this opportunity would never happen, as shortly after, Russian forces came under fire from a Ukrainian counterattack from the surrounding areas of the airport. Some of the units that assisted in the counteroffensive were the Georgian National Legion, Ukrainian Special Forces, and the National Guard unit who had previously retreated. The fighting was brutal, with each side desperately engaging with one another for this crucial objective, as holding it would assist in shifting the tide of the war. As the battle continued, the Russians became aware that they had little to no air support, as air superiority had not been achieved yet. Therefore, the Ukrainian counterattack became even more difficult to stop, and eventually the Russians found themselves being pushed back by the Ukrainians. Unconfirmed reports also suggest that the Ukrainian counteroffensive were also assisted by the Ukrainian Air Force, as Ukrainian Su-42s were seen attacking Russian positions. Eventually, the VDV broke and retreated from the airport into the surrounding woods. It is alleged that the fighting was so intense that a Georgian Legion commander by the name of Mamuka Mamulashvili ran out of ammunition and decided to use his car to run over retreating Russian troops. Nevertheless, the airport was recaptured, and the inbound Il-76 cargo planes were rerouted back to Russia. The Ukrainians were no doubt relieved by their success, but their plans would only be temporary, as the next day Russia sent a mechanized force, which had managed to find its way to Hostomel Airport from the Battle of Ivankiv and also survived repeat ambushes on its journey. The mechanized unit would end up expelling the Ukrainians from the airfield and allow Russia to reclaim the airport. But the airfield could not be used, as the damage was too severe and thus rendered the airstrip unusable. Furthermore, the airport continued to be contested for the next following weeks. But finally, on April 1st, the Russians withdrew from the airport as part of their larger withdrawal from around Kyiv. The aftermath of this battle was that it showed Russia did not successfully reach its objective, as the airport became unusable due to the resistance the Ukrainians showed. Furthermore, it assists in painting a clearer picture of how Russia struggled in decapitating the Ukrainian government with a swift and decisive battle plan. This would then be one of the numerous factors that contributed to Russia's invasion being drawn out and not ending in a couple of days. It also illustrates Russia's operational failure and how Russia overestimated their operational capability. A lack of coordination, equipment, and support contributed to the decimation of the units involved in the first assault. In contrast, the Ukrainian resistance at Hostomel Airport proved pivotal in preventing the capture of Kyiv. Strong resistance and the will to continue fighting helped to push back the Russians and shift the momentum to Ukraine. Furthermore, it shows that Ukraine was underestimated by the Russians and that they are able to put up a resilient fight. Nonetheless, the Battle of Hostomel Airport will be a battle that will be remembered in history. Now, if you enjoyed our video, please consider subscribing and liking the video, as doing so would help a lot. Thank you.